Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name's Adam Vasquez and I'm here with my co-host.
Oh, I get to say my own name this time without stumbling over what you say. Denise Kohnke.
Yep, welcome Denise, like glorious co-host. She is glowing as usual. And
Despite a headache, so that's my excuse for everything today.
So we are pushing through all the ailments and pains, right? It's like our old coaches used to tell us, just rub some dirt on it. And I don't know how you rub dirt on your brain.
I used that phrase the other day, as a matter of fact.
I feel like that's a phrase that needs to be used a little bit more often these days. Not to be insensitive to someone, but there's certain realities of this physical experience that you just gotta suck it up.
Suck it up, Buttercup. I mean, and when I used it, somebody said, "Oh, I haven't heard that phrase in a decade," and I'm like, "Well, I'm going to say it every day then." Yeah. I mean, get it out there because it's a good phrase.
Well, I mean, there's just one thing is certain, and this three-dimensional experience, and our third density, which we're going to get into densities today, which will be exciting, is physical, and physical pain is a feature of this experience.
Yes.
So
today, and I do want to do just one little quick recap from the previous.
Let's do it. Let's do a recap.
One quick, because the last episode had a lot of stuff in it that was we used everything, and then it was a good recap. Like, if you haven't watched this before, if you watch the last episode, you'll get, oh, I get it. These are all the high points. The thing you need to know, the variable in our equation that we use a lot is vibration, and that concept that everything vibrates. It vibrates at a different megahertz or whatever. There are vibrations that make you happy, and there are vibrations that cause fear and guilt and positive, negative, maybe a polarity of vibrations, maybe, but that is central to what we're going to talk about today. And we are, as advertised, going to give you, at least I advertised it, we are, as advertised, going to give you the secret of the universe today. And It makes so much sense.
And this is exciting because when I came across this information, we'll share kind of how we came across this information, because the universe gives you breadcrumbs, and you use your intuition and signs and all of that good stuff to follow them, right? And you come into you string them together, and it creates this miraculous experience that you just in awe in every step of the journey. It always surprises you in a good way, and it's exciting. So so this week we are going to talk about a lot of things, but specifically around the science, or we call the business, of reincarnation, which is something that
everybody talks about it. Everybody knows about it, but this is a better explanation of it than anyone you've heard before.
Right.
In the sense that it is, and what we do here is we strip culture out of everything. That's kind of an important point too. We strip culture. Culture is gone. Teachings that are human, gone. All the kinds of things that cloud people's perception, gone. And we strip this down to naked. Like, vibration is naked. It is a naked feeling that you get. And reincarnation has been packaged by cultures, but we're going to strip that all the way too.
Yes. Yeah. And remember, vibration, you are the source of your vibrations, your mind, your thoughts. So it's up to you. And that's just the choice, right?
Yeah.
And we'll get into that. So I always like to talk about it in sort of a video game, and we're going to talk about reincarnation. It's like the ultimate gamification, right? The ultimate
game. A big deal.
So
it's a big deal.
So, and I think during this time, I think we should also bring in your astrology signs. We can talk a little bit about that because I think it's part of the game. It's absolutely part of the game. It's part of how you pick your avatar and your soul mission and all of that cool stuff.
And I'm going to talk just a little bit about Carl Jung. Jung, it's hard to say, the Swedish guy who laid the foundation for archetypes. A lot of people don't know his story. And he went off. He went off and came back. And we're using a lot of the stuff now in marketing and in life that he came back with. So he did go off.
All right. So let's just jump into this. I'm just going to throw the slide up here. We can talk about it. I'll kick it off, Denise. You jump in.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I'm jumping in today.
Yes, please.
I'm jumping in every day.
Yes, you do. You do. And you lead a lot of conversations too. So please don't cut yourself short. It would not be the show without my glorious co-host, Denise. So, all right. So 7 densities. So the idea here is, this is the science of reincarnation. Talk about reincarnation. Those who are not familiar with reincarnation, the idea is that we are infinite beings having temporary experiences, and we keep coming back here again and again to solve sort of karma, right? And karmic contracts, whatever we want to call them, are contracts for growing on a soul level, right? So imagine, I use a video game sort of analogy here. So imagine you're sitting on your couch playing a video game. And this video game we're playing today is Earth. It's called Earth, Gaia, whatever you want to call it. And you chose that video game because Earth will give you the experience to allow you to ascend or grow on the soul level through catalysts or experiences in this 3-dimensional physical form, or call it third density. Let's just call it third density.
Call it third density. And, there's a presumption in what Adam just said. And the presumption is that there is more than just Earth out there.
Yes.
And that we might have come from someplace other than Earth, and that look at how many trillion galaxies there are in the universe based on this slide that's up there, that all of that is connected and all of that is one.
So just imagine this, everything comes from one source. And really what we're doing is we're experiencing, or source is experiencing itself through our personal individual experiences. And so when we bring in, say, law of vibration, and specifically law of attraction, which we'll get into in another episode, but like, say, law of attraction is like attract likes, and that's based on vibration. So your thoughts bring in your experiences, which we're all living a social construct together, which is this sort of ecosystem matrix that we've created with our own thoughts.
And the easy way to say that is if you're watching Bachelor in Paradise and it's like, I'm just not vibing, I'm not connecting with this guy. It's like, oh, I found another guy and I'm really connecting, and like a day, like a half hour, and then they're kissing on the beds that are on the beach. That's the same thing. I mean, vibration is something that you can quantify, but we all feel it. And if you don't recognize that it's there, it's like, oh, wake up. That's self-awareness on your part.
Well, so I'm gonna Denise, I'm gonna walk through how I understand it, and you jump in also, of course. But I want to start with the idea of the densities, and we can walk through the densities, right? So there are 7 densities, and every soul goes through all levels of densities until it comes back to source, returns back to source, and then starts it all again. And if you think about it, this is, if all time happens at the same time, this is an infinite loop. This just continuously happens. And we're talking some of these densities are millions of years long in human or Earth years. Okay. Right. Some are shorter than others.
Right. And that's the thing that people need to recognize too. We're not talking thousands of years for us, like by caveman things. We're talking about millions upon millions upon millions of years for all of it.
Right.
And
So
this, can I just say, are you going to talk
go,
about
go for it. Go for it. Yeah, please.
Yeah. I mean, when Adam brought up gamification, that's something that is a really good way of thinking about what it is that we are doing. And this is the Super Bowl here.
Yep. Yeah. Earth right now. So I'll get into Earth and what it is as a platform, a game platform for everybody, and why it is the master's class right now. This is the place to be in this universe. Like, this is it. This is the game, because we're going through a convergence right now. We're actually moving from third density to fourth density. Actually, we've already moved it through it technically through research in the 2012. So this
Mayan calendar, end of the Mayan calendar, just so you know, wasn't the end of the world as some people predicted, but that's really tactical. But it was the end of the Mayan calendar. And it's like, where'd that calendar come from? Oh,
right. And it marked the end of third density. Okay. So let's go through it. Let's go through each of these densities. The first density is, you think of, the four elements, right? So the four elements being fire, water, earth, air. And this is just being. Okay. There's really no self-awareness, and every soul starts here. Okay. So all of us used to be a rock. Okay. Maybe gold or whatever, as we've evolved. And maybe gold is the highest form of evolution in first density because it is the purest element. Could be. That's something to think about.
Right. And fire, water, the four, things, fire, water, earth, air, are really integral in astrology. That's how the astrological signs are divvied up.
So first density, you're there until you move into it's basically second density. And second density is kind of two levels. Things that movement is in second density. So the catalyst for second density is communication. So think about pets at being the highest level of second density. And that means your cats, your dogs, hamsters, whatever you got, goldfish. And if you really think about what we're helping them with, we're actually helping them move from second density to third density. So they're communicating with us and learning how to live in a third density being. So almost as someone would explain, a dog is like training wheels for a human experience, because nobody's going to throw a soul in a human experience because they'll be lost right away. So you move up the chain.
Yeah. And goldfish, by the way, there's a lot of very current research on how smart they are. And people put them in that little round jar and just call it a day. But if you have a goldfish, please talk to your goldfish and communicate with them, because they're bored AF and they do respond differently to different people.
And second density's catalyst is all about interaction and communications with other second density and third density beings. Okay. And so you think about it, that kind of makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And the same thing is, we've all spent time in second density, and we reincarnated hundreds of times at these levels before we sort of graduated to a third density being. Now, I will say this, as we're going through densities, it's your choice at a soul level. You do not need to graduate, unless you want to, or you feel you're ready. So you can spend millions of years in these different densities. It doesn't mean the planet that you've been doing this on will be available, which we'll talk about that with the fourth density in Earth coming up. But you can stay a dog. Like, and there's research out there in soul planning and past life regressions about pets. And a lot of pets like having that pet experience, and they aren't ready or want to jump in the human experience. So they stay in that sort of playful, frolicking, sort of carefree life, right?
Okay. And I want to qualify this a little bit, because when Adam says there's a lot of research out there, there is. It's just that you have to look for it. there's a lot of research out there for a lot of this. You just have to make an effort to look for it because it is not covered by popular media. Although UFOs and aliens are starting to break through.
Right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But well, and we'll talk about that in a second when we talk about planets and their roles in this, because we're actually in a quarantine right now. So meaning there's a reason why people can't or aliens can't come to us, because we are in a critical transition point on this planet. And basically, if they were to interfere, the game would be up, so to speak. And
because they provide us with information.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, find some ancient writings and drawings on like some cave walls, and take a look at what's in the sky. You know, take a look at some of those symbols. They're obviously not from here.
And a lot of this, what we're explaining, came out during a channeled reading which were actually UFO scientists, believe it or not, trying to channel other life forms on other planets or other dimensions. And it was back in the 80s, early 80s, with Don Elkins, Carla Ruckert, and Alan McCarty. And Carla did most of the readings, and she was sat down. This is over a multi-year process where she literally channeled Ra. And the idea was Ra as we, as in many, because when you move to a higher level of consciousness, you move away from service to self, the service for self to service to others. So it's more of a collective sort of hive mind. So when we say Ra, it's a group together.
Okay. So that was a long sentence with a lot of important stuff in it. I'm just going to recap.
Yeah, please recap, Denise.
Ra would be the collective voice that is being transmitted to these three folks who are doing kind of okay, I'm connected, and then they dictate and write it down. Okay, that's Ra. It's a connected, a culmination of voice. And then, what did you say?
And so it was over a certain year period where Carla was basically, they were channeling themselves, and they were basically asking questions and answers. It was a question and answer.
And you talked about, see, my brain's not working today. It is, and it's always, frankly, on a 10-second delay, and someday I'll tell you why. But you talked about the duality. Mm-hmm. Now, the duality that came out on this is important because he just kind of ran over service to self, service to others.
Yeah, we'll jump into that after we get through the densities for sure.
This is huge because there are dualities everywhere in our world, and we recognize that. So that concept of stripping down via words and culture and all that sort of stuff, getting to hardwire the dualities are super important moving forward.
Yeah, and we'll make sure that we leave any comments in our comment field as far as the Book of Ra and any references to this material. But there's been a lot of other stuff before the Book of Ra and what Don Elkins and Carla and Alan did, but also there's been a lot after. And if you understand connecting to consciousness and thoughts and all of that other things as far as the quantum field or the Akashic record, whatever you want to talk about it, that is what we're referring to. So if you believe that, you have to believe this. And plus the information, the wisdom is just incredible that came out, that UFO researchers would, not to discredit them in any way, but it's almost like unworldly as far as the knowledge that is being dropped.
And I think it was in episode 1 or 2, I talked about strategy And I talked about strategy being like you're in a field and there are haystacks everywhere and there are needles in haystacks everywhere. And you have to find the right needle in each haystack to put together a strategy or a concept or to explain something and get an insight. Now, that's kind of what people have been doing since the beginning of our recorded time on where do I come from? How does this stuff work? Are there spirits? Am I going to die? What about that ghost? All of this has been discussed and parsed into all sorts of belief systems since the beginning of Earth human communications, up to and including the tarot and Christianity and astrology and all that. So none of this is new, but this is all needles in haystacks that have been put together to make a cohesion of A plus B plus C equal D.
Right. That's a great point. And so we're trying to summarize this as best we can, although it's very complex. And I recommend everyone go out and research. The Book of Ra is really good. It refers to the law of one, how we're all one and connected, which we all know that on a consciousness level anyway. So this is just breaking down the structure behind the veil of forgetfulness, the veil of the video game that we're in today. So let's talk about, so if second density is about communication, that's the real catalyst. Third density is really about emotions, feelings, and our minds. And that's where we are finishing up and we are moving into fourth density today. So third density really is when you really become self-aware, fully self-aware and self-aware of separation from others. Go ahead.
Carl Jung, he was like a friend of Freud. If you don't know who, like the Jungian, okay, back in the day, I'm like 6 credits away from a psych degree. And I quit and changed my major like 7 times. But I quit because it was becoming it had no room for magic. But so this guy, Carl Jung, who was the friend of Freud, started talking about the self-awareness and started to organize this by way of, frankly, the third density. And one of the components of this was intuition. There are feelings and then there's a rational mind. And one of the components of that is intuition. And he's also, just so you know, he's, and I've had to remember a lot. And I'm like, oh, I forgot that. He's also the father of collective unconscious. And that thought, like this guy's like a respected psych person. That thought of collective unconscious is that which you are born, that which you have, and you are born with it. Kind of like elephants who are born with, okay, I know where the water hole is, even though I'm a youngin', and then mom teaches it, but they're all born with a migratory and or survival understanding. And he called that the collective unconscious.
Right. And
I have derailed. I apologize. Keep going.
No, that's great. I mean, that the collective is in everything, right? That's consciousness itself. And that's the programming of the game in many ways, right?
So on the third density, it's like.
Yeah. And so in the third density, we start in a very primitive way, right? And anything that scares us, we try to kill it. We find fear, all of that, right? And that separation from the source or seven density or God is how we progress through it to discover ourselves and come back in one in unity. So really, third density is it is the shortest of all densities, actually. It is the most intense of all densities. So everyone, congratulate yourselves because you are in third density right now and you're graduating. Not everybody on this planet will graduate third density, but that's okay because that's up to you. There's no judgment here.
Yes.
Now,
And this duality that we're going to talk about is part of that. You kind of choose what kind of person you are.
Yep.
You're going to kind of choose at this point, okay, am I this kind of person or am I this kind of person?
So,
and we see that duality everywhere.
yeah, so that duality or polarity is service to self versus service to others, right? So really, we talk about good or evil. There's really not good or evil. There's polarities, and really what it is you can have a choice. You can move into fourth density based on service to self or service to others, knowing that service to self, you have a cap. You can't ascend all the way in a service to self. And it's a choice, but all souls do eventually move up. So you end up staying in fourth density for a much longer period in fifth density, but you can really cannot move past that because it requires a collective thought and a shared abundance and all of that moving into fifth and sixth density. So you end up staying in a lower density, and it's like the game ends. There's no more. You can't go any further with it.
Yeah. In marketing,
in service to self.
Service to self. And let's talk about service to self a little bit, because it is a fundamental pillar of marketing, in that if marketing in 5 minutes, okay, I can teach you. Item 1, what's in it for me? If you base all your marketing and advertising and messaging on what's in it for me, meaning identify a target, empathize with that target, understand their motivations, and then provide them with what's in it for them, that's golden. It's fabulous. But not everybody thinks like that, right? Which is why it doesn't go everywhere, why your messaging doesn't resonate everywhere, because not everybody thinks like that. But half the population at least does.
Well, it's less and less now, thank goodness, because we're past a point where there's more service to others and service to selves here.
Yeah, and people have to grow into that. They have to, like a 2-year-old doesn't have service to others, you have to grow into it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the learning process, right? Going through third density, once we get to a point where it's, by the way, anybody who's listening to this, you are in fourth density from a thought perspective, regardless if you believe in what we're talking about. And I'm not saying that you're not if you don't, but as long as you're caring, loving, understand, you're always service to others, you're trying to ascend, you can do that through your own experiences, and that's okay, right? But we're just trying to break down the common themes of the science behind all of it, whether you believe it or not. This is sort of some of the physics as we understand it in this other, again, we're on the other side of the veil of forgetfulness, right? So there may be distortions in what we're sharing with you today, but we believe this is the closest to truth that we've been able to find and see and realize. Okay. So again, you got to internalize it and make it your own. But I think that point, and when you choose the greater awareness that there's something more than us, we're all connected, that it's either love or you can still pick, again, service to self, which is more of a fear-based approach. That's when you ascend to a fourth density being. And our bodies, people being born today, meaning are in a fourth density perspective already, because we have already passed it as of 2012. So basically any baby born after 2012 is a fourth density being.
Right. Okay. So keep this in mind, because humans like infrastructure and order, and so does the universe. Frankly, when you think about, Genesis, it's like, I've built you in my we've built you in a image of ourselves kind of thing. When you think about that, and I have always been fascinated by the infrastructure of the universe, because, okay, every time I went to a medium, and I, do that periodically and try to connect, I'm not as good at it as they are, but they always, when I say, okay, I want to connect with my my mom or my brother, they say, well, they're very busy. They always say they're very busy because guess what? They have jobs up there.
Yeah.
There is an infrastructure in the universe, just like there's an infrastructure here of duty and process and evolution, and it is not static, and it's just not roll around and everything is great and lovely, and you have a job to do. Now, wouldn't we say, oh, they have jobs in the universe? Job is a word, and anytime you use a word, whether it's an English word or a word from a Native American or a Chinese word, that already takes it away from the meaning of what the energy says.
Yeah, it's limited, right?
Words are very limiting.
Yeah.
So when I say job, it means an order of energy and evolutionary path.
Right. Right. And so when we think about fourth density beings, aliens, basically what we're talking about in a physical form, because every one of these, it has a physical form in this three-dimensional reality. If you were to open it all up, we would see aliens and be able to interact with them.
All over the place.
Because they have souls too, because they're playing the same game, but they're just playing it on a different planet, or they've already ascended to a levels where they have to play it on a different planet because that planet isn't at that this planet is too low of a density and they don't want to play at this density because they've already gone past it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So planets themselves raise as a collective at higher densities, and some planets you cannot incarnate into if it's a different density than it's too high of a density and you haven't gotten there on a soul level, or it's too low and maybe you don't want to help others, or you're just afraid you're going to get sucked back in because of the veil of forgetfulness, and you'll actually descend versus ascend.
And you're just not good at it. And when we say, and this is again, I want to bring it back to words because you're using the word planet, and I totally get it because we have named planets, and we have named planets that are not in our solar system but are in our metaphysical system. We have named those too, but the idea of a planet is like, who knows what that is? Yeah. Who knows if it's a rock or if it's a black hole or if it's a star or if it's a nebula or if it's, the idea of a planet is based on words and your representation of that in your head.
Well, I have some points on that. Okay, so let's go through the ascension, the different densities, and then we can talk about planets, because everything is designed. There are no, use a Bob Ross, happy mistakes or accidents. It's all happy and on purpose, right? It's purpose, right? And everything is perfectly in sync, perfectly, which is mind-blowing. So you think about this and look to the right, you look at 2 trillion galaxies. That's how many options we have, but we chose Earth. So as that fourth density happens, if you think about the difference of looking at fourth densities, aliens, we'll just use aliens as an example. Yeah, the word aliens.
And for those of you listening, I have air quotes.
Yeah, we may not be able to see them because there's a quarantine, or they're in a different dimension that they can hide themselves from us. Whoever, I don't know, but I'm just saying that they're at a level. It's almost like imagine your pet looking up to you as a human and being like, I don't know what half the stuff you do even means. I don't even know what that TV is. Like, I don't know any of that. That's what we're talking about, the difference of third density and fourth density, especially high fourth density beings versus third density. So we're like cavemen. Imagine you were a caveman or woman coming in modern day world and not the caveman lawyer, like was it Phil Hartman? I don't understand these things, but I understand that man is innocent. not caveman lawyer, but like you're coming in there and you're like, wow, I don't even get it. Think about even Benjamin Franklin. I always thought it was fascinating. I always kind of fantasized a little bit of like going back in time and bringing an iPhone or bringing them forward in time. What like Thomas Jefferson or Benjamin Franklin even think
Yeah, Ben
with their
Franklin,
technology, right?
he was a crazy, amazing person.
Yeah.
Ben was, and he had so many inventions and had so much intellect and intuition and forward thinking. He was arguably like one of those people who got placed, like arguably Nikola Tesla.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. Well, they are higher density beings helping us through our ascension process, right?
Yeah. If you look at Nikola Tesla, what killed him was actually capitalism, because he had every invention scoped out in his head that we have today.
Yep.
And all he wanted to do was give it for free to everybody.
Well, Thomas Edison, we talk about this all the time, difference between Nikolai Tesla and Thomas
Thomas
Edison.
Edison.
Thomas Edison was a market inventor and Nikolai Tesla was just an innovator, and not just an incredible, amazing innovator, but he didn't know how to build communities and markets and bring people together around shared work, right?
Right. But I would argue that service to self is Thomas Edison. Service to others is Nikola Tesla.
Well,
a lot of that had to do with the economics of invention and who is funding whom and what those funders' expectations were of these two people. So,
I agree. Now, if Nikolai Tesla, and it's unfair, obviously, he can't defend himself. He's not here. If he really got it, though, he understand how to play the game and know how to use the ego, the avatar he created for himself, right?
Well, he don't want to play the game.
Yeah, but that's the game, right? We're here, right? You gotta play the game, and so we'll get into that. So then fifth density is really start to move from a physical body to more of an essence. You're light, like a light body, basically, and your light body, you can transform into anything. You can self-heal, whatever, it doesn't matter. And we're talking millions of years in this sort of light body experience. So imagine yourself now as Denise, right? And now you're in fifth density, and Denise, still, you got an identity, but the veil forgetfulness is off. You understand the game. Everything is like a clear. You see a bigger perspective on everything, right? Because the higher you go, the more everything you see. And then you become more of a facilitator of this process in the physical reality, because we're still in physical reality. There is a soul behind you still, even at fifth density, still playing a game, just at a higher level. And now you can actually, you don't have to deal with the physical, the matter of things, right? So you can turn into any form you want. You don't need to eat food, like all sorts of cool stuff. I like food, but like, that's a third density experience, third and fourth density experience.
Okay. And, when you talked a lot about knowing, what is the knowing? And then, the collective unconscious maybe has some knowing. Yeah. My personal knowing, like my whole life, that if I could, someone asked me when I was like 5, like, what happens when you die? My answer has always been, everything there is to know. Yeah. And I feel like, that's my knowing. And that's been what's in my head for all my years on Earth, is that you get to know everything that there is to know. You are one with that, up to including who killed Marilyn Monroe, and where people are buried, and all of that. So I do believe that it is a knowing in a lot of us, but some of us can't get there from here.
Well, some of us, and some of us are in different places in their soul journey at this time, right? I mean,
yeah. I also read that some of us don't have chakras up, all the blue stuff, that they don't grow those.
Well, that's interesting. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I read that somewhere and I don't remember.
Well, I wonder if it's anything tied to service to self or service to others and how you're incarnated, maybe. But either way, so now we're keep moving up, and then we're going from fifth density to sixth density, and sixth density is really shared consciousness. So every thought, Denise would be able to hear my thoughts. I can hear her thoughts. We're all like this sort of hive. It's all together. We're all one. It's really connectedness, and that's where the raw collective is from, sixth density, helping us. This is where your higher self is in sixth density. The thing about, we got to remember, if all time happens at the same time in every density, so you're basically playing the game at every levels at the same times. That's just to show you how infinite you really are. That means when you talk to your higher self, you're actually talking to your future self. Your sixth density self is actually helping you, because the sixth density self knows the path, knows what works, where's your fastest path, what's the most streamlined and the most abundant way for you to get to where you want to in your ascension journey, because they've already played out all of the scenarios.
So in that thought, though, Adam, you have talked about truncation by way of 2012 and what is happening, because the game is going to change now. Yeah. And Earth is the Super Bowl where we are all playing this game. And this game, again, I'm using words, and words have things, but you talk to astrophysicists and people who like send out like the theories about, oh, we're in a matrix. Oh, we're avatars ourselves. Oh, we're just playing. It's like some other being's game. Well, okay, let's think about that. But the game's ending, right?
So the third density game is ending on this planet. Yeah. And we can see it. So this is based on some interviews that I'm about ready to share. You can believe it or not. I think it's very interesting, and there's definitely a lot of possibilities to it and probabilities, but doesn't mean, because we're on this side of the veil, we can't say for sure. So planets themselves or galaxies themselves have seasons, right? And those seasons, like a galaxy rotates like the Milky Way, all right? So we rotate around the sun and we can get into what a solar system is based on everything else, but a solar system is its own encapsulated game. A sun is the energy core for all the planets. So when a sun dies, that means at a soul level, we've decided that we no longer need that solar system, okay? It isn't like, oh, this catastrophe, we didn't see it coming. No, we know it. It's planned. It's okay. It's like turning the lights off in an old game that just needs to be obsoleted because we've all graduated from it, right? Which happens eventually in all solar systems. So that's the logos. That's the sort of collective. Then we have the planets that are rotating around the sun. We have their 4 seasons and all that stuff, right? Well, when a Milky Way or a galaxy, and this is out there in some theory, astrophysicists and metaphysicists are theorizing on this, that the Milky Way rotates too, and that we do know that it has a rotation. And in that rotation, instead of seasons, they're actually consciousness levels. So as a whole solar system, where we are in, that certainly Earth is in this bigger sort of galaxy, Milky Way, it's rotating. And so we're forcing the whole planet to shift the fourth density, because we're actually moving into the fourth density season right
now. That 2012 thing that we keep referencing, that is when the Earth was at the very center of the Milky Way. That was the year that it was at its center.
Right.
So when you think about that, and it's like, okay, I'm in the middle and now I'm going out again.
Yeah, we're past
that. We are chosen, blessed. We're here at that time, which is super cool. And I keep wanting to go back to how this explains everything. So listen to all this and go, holy crap, it does, because it will.
Well, so in third density, right? What are some features like a software or a game? War is a feature of third density. Disease is a feature of third density. Hate, like these lower level experiences are expressions, are catalysts, because those are the catalysts we require as a planet to excel to fourth density, because through those catalysts we learn our true nature and find our true purpose in ourselves through multiple incarnations on this planet, but multiple incarnations on other planets too. So it's not like everybody just does this on Earth and we're all Earthlings. There are some just Earthling souls, and there's a lot of them here, and that's fine. We love you. But others like myself, I know, and I can share this story, that I am definitely not, my origin story is not Earth, and I will explain it to all of you now. I will get out and say it. So
are you coming out?
I am. So I knew nothing about like any of this. Okay. When I had this experience. so I'm out, I'm meditating, and this, I'm meditating one morning, and I'm seeing in my mind's eye, and I always know the difference of something that's my thought, which is something that's coming from, universal consciousness into my field of view in my mind's eye. So it's all black in there, and I'm just kind of just thinking about my, different energy centers and doing a short chakra meditation. And suddenly this blob that's moving like in shaped in space, and is kind of moving and morphing like this, but it's all one sort of solid, almost like a liquid that you would throw in space. It kind of just sticks together, that we see the astronauts, and it's indigo. And indigo is not a color I normally explain for that color. I could call it like, oh, it's like a purplish blue. Like I don't know, like, oh, it's indigo, right? I don't know, they think like that. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, indigo. Why do I need to know indigo? What is the purpose of me saying indigo? So later that day, when I have a break from, doing my sort of my day job, being a CEO and such, I look up indigo, and I start looking up indigo. What does indigo mean when you see it in your meditation? And there was a lot of stuff, but really it came down to this whole thing of being an indigo child. And for those who don't know, indigo children, which I didn't know, were born in the mid to late 70s through the 80s. And there were people that have incarnated on this planet to help others ascend. So they're from other planets. Their origin is not from Earth. And they've sort of graduated to a point where they're like, I'm going to help other people. I'm not equating myself to the Dalai Lama, but it's like that idea of ascension, and you're helping other people reach nirvana. That's the point. And by the way, I'm not the only one that's an indigo child. There's like millions now, and there's a lot more than even more. Now more and more people are flooding in, because the whole universe wants us to succeed in this ascension of Earth moving into fourth density. And it has a choice of going to service the self or service to others on a planetary level. So all we're trying to do is bring the vibration up, so we make a successful transition to a service to others sort of planet, so that the planet keeps graduating and we can keep enjoying it. Because if it doesn't, then it will plateau, and then people who are service to others, Earth is basically done. And that's not done, dead, going to blow up, but it is going to be a very authoritarian, terrible place for people to live, meaning authoritarian control will rule the planet. It's like that, the empire takes over the world type of thing.
Yes, because they can't leave. They can't leave on a soul level. They cannot ascend on a soul level.
Right.
So they're stuck here. And
they're doing it by choice, because they're service to self, and they don't want to lose their identity to the source.
And I do believe that service to self, service to others is not necessarily binary. I think that's the choice that you make. People talk about free will. That element has been around, that concept of free will has been around for a very long time. But if you're choosing, and we're stripping all this down naked into vibration and energy, you can flip and go, oh my goodness, it's not about me, is it? It is about everybody else. It is about the earth, my circle, my family, my concentric communities. It is about something else. And
Right.
I am not the sun, and the planets don't revolve around me.
Right. And I think, and there's nothing wrong with taking care of yourself and sometimes putting yourself first and all that stuff. We're
Yeah.
not talking about, we're talking about a fear-based selfishness that controls people and controls nations, things like that. Right.
Yes.
So we're not talking about, I love you. That's why, if you do fear-based action, that doesn't mean you're necessarily service to self. It just means you're doing a fear-based action because you're scared of losing something or someone. But when you always choose yourself over others, like socio or psychopaths, then that's like a service to self individual, right?
Yeah.
And at a soul level, they've chosen that. And that's how they manifest in a physical form in that level. So that could be an explanation there, Denise. I don't know, but it probably is. So back to my journey about how I got to where I got to. So indigo children, I look it up, and there's crystal children, but there's a whole generation that was born with psychic abilities, abilities to see things. I can see energies in broader macro energies. I can sometimes read people's minds, which is a whole weird experience. It'll be like when I read your mind, it's not like I just hear your thoughts. I see you speak them like you're whispering them to me. And it doesn't happen all the time. It comes in and out, and it catches me off guard when it happens, because I'll be like, did they just say that? I don't think they wanted me to hear that. Like, that's weird. And then I'll say it to them, and it's not like they lost their internal monologue, right? Like Austin Powers, but no, they actually didn't say it. And so I've had experiences like that. I also, can sense
These are not
people.
the droids you're looking for.
Right. So I also am a very strong manifester. I've always been very talented that way. But the other part that it made me realize is just there's a knowingness. I know this because growing up, I would say something and my intent would be a very positive thing. And a lot of the times people would misconstrue them in a very negative fear base, because that's the lens they were looking through. Right. And I always struggled. I just never understood that at a systemic or system level in my soul. And it still gets me in trouble sometimes because I just don't think like that. And I know why.
In trouble a lot.
Yeah. Right. I'm sure we're going to get in trouble on this show for enough. And there's a couple slides that I'm sure being truthful or sharing my theories, our theories with you will get us in trouble. But my only point is that's what it was. And then it didn't stop there. Right. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. It came from another place. I didn't even know about star seeds. So people who are interested in this, look up star seeds.
Do you want to just explain it really quick?
Yeah. So a star seed is the same thing as an indigo child. It's someone who's not from origin, souls not from this planet, but their job in the universe is to go to other planets to help that population ascend and move to a higher level. So it's like we're already at a higher level, and we love, I love this planet. I love Earth. I love everything about it. We want to see everybody succeed. So we help in many ways, as many ways as we can. Sometimes, you just know there's something that you're supposed to do. Not everybody is activated, meaning that they're knowing, and you do get activated at a certain time. And I was activated recently, a couple years ago now, and it's just been mind blowing. And so how I knew where my star seed, even the idea of it, I didn't know what a star seed was either. I'm sitting and I'm walking the dogs. I have a couple dogs, and I'm walking one of them outside in our front yard. And it was in our winter time when the Orion constellation is big up in the sky, really bright. And I'm looking at Orion stars, the belt, and one star in particular, and I can't explain it, but there was like a homesickness feeling to it. I don't know how to explain it. Like, I felt like I was missing something, like there was a piece of me in the star itself, right? So it doesn't make any sense. And I'm trying to get a little bit more intuitive to my own feelings and my own abilities. And I'm like, okay, well, that's what I'm feeling. Why am I feeling that? So I started doing the good old online interwebs research, the great Oracle, Google, and other things. And I'm studying this, and I'm taking the sort of there's like fun personality, or what star seed are you tests, and there's tarot readings and everything else. I started doing tarot readings, and every time it came up with Orion star seed, and not even more specific, Mintaka star seed. And anybody from Mintaka, or anybody who's aware of it, knows that it's a water planet that doesn't exist anymore. It's actually got blown up from somebody else that blew it up. But it's very old star seed, very old. And I've been called an old soul my entire life, and I've seen things beyond wisdom that other people haven't. And again, I'm not trying to come from an arrogance perspective, or I'm better anyway. I'm not. I'm just trying to explain what my experience was. And so I read an article about Mintaka because, I knew it exists from my astronomy classes, and the whole story about how it is destroyed and everything else, whether it's true or not, but it's come through these seances. I started to cry. I started to get visibly upset, like loved ones died. Like that's how strong of an emotion I had suddenly from reading, a fictional story, air quotes, fictional, through not having any attachment to it other than that, like there was a knowingness. And that's when I realized my true origins. And I don't know what we called it, if it's Mintaka or whatever, that's an earthly term for it. Yeah, we call whatever in the language that it is. But I know, and this is a reason why I can literally just sit in water all day. I love water. I've always been attracted to mermaids, fish, water, what have you, just on a weird spiritual level and a soul level. And it's more than just being a water sign. I'm a sun, Scorpio. But I don't know, Denise. And it sounds, again, every time I say it out loud to somebody who listening to this is like, dude, that's crazy, man. What have you been smoking? But when you put it in the context of what we know and what we were talking about, from my knowingness, honestly, it makes a lot more sense than not. Like I've actually, it's like I've rediscovered myself and who my true self is. And I'm saying this publicly now, and I've never said this publicly because of the fear of people thinking I'm crazy, or, losing clients or what have you, because they don't understand. But I am saying this in a genuine way. I don't know how else to explain it, but it is true.
There is something, Adam, that was coined, and I'm going back to our Carl Jung friend. He coined, as there is insanity, there is hypersanity. And hypersanity is something that you experience when you basically go through one of these experiences, one of these portals, one of these moments where it all becomes clear and you are a different person.
Right.
That is hypersanity. And we don't use that word a lot, which I find interesting because we should. There has to be an inverse to insanity. You can't have insanity without having hypersanity.
Yeah. Well, and ever since those experiences, those awakening sort of knowingness experiences, honestly, the universe's downloads from my higher self or future Adam or whatnot have been intense and have just getting more intense. And it can be a bit overwhelming sometimes. But it's all good. So if you're experiencing that,
it's all good, Adam. It's all good.
So one of our points of having this show is so that we can start coming out of the closet and have these discussions, because I'm not the only one experiencing this.
No, there are a lot of people in the closet. And if you just, frankly, you look at, and I get it, my community, my group of people around me is my community and my group of people around me. But the more you talk about it, the more, even on the periphery, the more you talk about it, they go, yeah, I actually believe a lot of that too. And the stigma associated with this, what you said, and the discipline of learning about this, which is, a whole sector of learning, that's coming down. The internet, thankfully, did a lot to propagate this. And you'll say, if you're a denier at home, you'll say, yeah, but look what's on the internet. It's a bunch of garbage. True that. But the internet also,
there is a lot of garbage, and there's a lot of good
quite
stuff.
a lot of garbage. There's quite a lot of fallacy. There's quite a lot of fear mongering, but there's also quite a lot of information that is shared by people that when you start to look at the collective, it's like, oh my goodness, there are people like me.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I learned, and I am by no means a tarot master, but okay, I took a couple classes. And the teacher said, when you talk to God, that's prayer. But when God talks to you, that's tarot. And tarot's been around for a really pretty long time, or forms of tarot. So, your readings, your engagement with opening up a physical portal, not just your head, but a physical portal to this. Everyone's opening up to a physical portal will bring something really unique to them. And the thing about the tarot is that, man, you cannot fool the tarot.
Yeah.
You start doing the tarot and do tarot readings, you cannot fool the tarot.
Well, and really, it comes down to, you talk about angels and different archangels and stuff. Those are all those soul groups. That's your higher, could be your higher self, even talking, communicating you through you. And that's how God source communicates to you through your other, it's expressions of itself, which is what we are. And so, it's fascinating. So let's talk a little bit about soul groups in this reincarnation process. So I've read it this way, and I think it's kind of fascinating. And I've read it or seen TV interviews and all sorts of stuff. The way it is explained to me is, when everyone decides they want to jump in the game, and it's not like reincarnation that you have pauses, you have time on the other side of things,
millions and millions and millions.
It's infinite, right? It's infinite, so it doesn't stop. Right. It's like time doesn't exist on the other side. And this is the visualization of myself seeing this. So you basically you have a spiritual guide, like your soul guide, your guardian angel. And the guardian angel's role is like a dungeon master. If you think about it from a D&D, they're going to create the game. They're game master. They're going to create the scenarios for you. So what they do is you get together in a room with all of your soul group, right? So Denise and I were there doing this planning, other Denise's loved ones, same thing for my side, friends, other people that are not on this call that we know who's in our soul group, because who's in your soul group because there's a connection. Also in your soul group could be other karmic conclusions you need to close up karmic cycles with, meaning you might have mistreated each other in a past life, maybe even murdered each other in a past life. That could happen. And so the next cycle is about releasing any karma between you. But if you don't have any karma, then it's like everyone has karma. But I mean, if there's other things you can learn, if you're there just to help others, it's part of that, and you will learn on a soul level anyways, because we're all learning. Then they plan it out. And when planning it out, it isn't like you don't have choice or free will, right? In fact, you can just rip up the contract and say, I'm done doing it. And that's okay. You just know at a soul level, you're going to be like, damn it, I wish I didn't rip it up. I'm going to have to redo this thing because we forget. But imagine your pets are even here, right? And then your pets may be a different kind of animal because that's not their true form as a dog. Maybe they're a horse. Maybe they like being a dragon in another life. You know what I mean? Because different scenarios, like all of this stuff. all these different lives that we all experiences, like avatars in a game. So you start thinking about, okay, we're going to come together. This is what your path, it's like, this is what you want to learn in this life. Okay. That's the structure. And this is who's going to help you at different times. People are going to come in at different times and leave at different times in your life too, including deaths. Because sometimes souls, we may say like, hey, Denise, I'm going to help you through this point, but I promised another one of my soul group members from another one that's not connected to you that I'd help them. So I got to leave this one and reset and come in another level with another person to finish up our karmic cycle together. Sorry, that happens. Things like that happen. And when people die, it's exiting the game. So it's if you think about death in a different way, where you're like, no, they're not gone. Like literally, they're like, I'm done playing. And there's times in your life where there's exit ramps. So these exit ramps are there to do one or two things. Either give you an exit, meaning you're not going to accomplish in this lifetime what you wanted to, so you might as well quit the game because it's just going to get ugly from here, and you're just getting too hard, and you can exit stage left. And it can be through disease, it can be through, unfortunately, suicide, it can be through a lot of things. Then there's the other part where it's like there is also accidents. And so they talk about that in accidents, and that happens maybe 10% of the time. But 90% of the time, it's a pre-designed exit ramp, and that can happen at any time depending on how long you want to keep playing. So it's up to you in many ways.
Yeah, a lot of what you said can be mirrored, or you find those kinds of stories in the Marvel universe, in science fiction in general, and in fantasy in general. They're all over the place. The same things that you said. Now, I kind of believe that if there is a mind that has the gift of creating a universe like the Marvel universe, or like the Game of Thrones universe, or these people who create at this level, they're kind of like channeling. They are only delivering what is possible. And when you look at science fiction and the delivery of what is possible, go back in time, everything that has been said is possible. Everything that was written 100 years ago that are crazy impossibilities are possible. Yep. So I do not believe that what you're saying is untrue, because all of this is the stuff of parable, story, and metaphor. And we all, as humans, have to understand things by way of metaphors and narratives and archetypes and things that translate to the rational world for us, because it's really hard to put words to energy, or words to, feelings, which are energy. Hard to put words to that. But all of it, everything you said just now, the different outs and the different paths. And I asked a good friend of mine who, he's an astrologer. He's like a magi astrologer, and maybe he might be coming on our show pretty soon. But I asked a friend of mine, he's looked at thousands of different people's life and projections of great days, and looking backwards and forwards and current. And I asked him, it's like, do you know when people are going to die? Based on future and past. And his answer was, there's a lot of outs.
Yeah.
Basically, there are a lot of outs that have happened already, or will happen, that you can choose out. And those things are streets. They are streets on our path, on our road, on our journey, where you can, in fact, get out by some means or another.
Yeah.
So we're all choosing to stay right now. And that choice of staying is, I have a brother who we lost because he took his own life. I get this. I have a husband who died very early. It's very hard to reconcile those two things when you put it through the filter of rationality and you put it through the filter of, did I or anybody else deserve this? The word deserve is really interesting word. I could talk for an hour on it. The outs, I'm not playing this game anymore, like I have to reset, is the thing that I hold on to, because everything else makes me sad. Everything else makes me think that there is not evil, but bad forces.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else isn't an answer for me. But the answer for me is, there are a lot of outs in your life, and sometimes you just can't play anymore for whatever reason. Maybe because you're just done with this density. Love that.
Yeah. And in multiple cases, it's just your game was over. It was always designed this way, and
game over. Yeah.
And
Gamification. That's what people learn today. The gamification of life and the gamification of metaverse. And I do think that is evolutionary, and it's here for a reason right now. And it wasn't here 100 years ago, but it's here for a reason right now.
Well, and it's fascinating. So I was doing a presentation at Randolph-Macon College, where, I went to school, and I'm a board of trustee member there. They're just talking about entrepreneurship and a wonderful, wonderful students, and really excited about what they're all going to turn into and become. I was talking about consciousness, and they were thinking I was going to talk about entrepreneurship. I was talking about the mind and how that's the common thread to all of this, and you can do anything. It doesn't matter if you do this, you'll be successful in anything. And he was talking about doing his own sort of influencer channel, and he was talking about using an alias as an alias as his influencer channel, not himself. And I was like, well, why are you doing that? And he was like, well, I'm afraid people won't like it. I'm like, they're going to love you. You're authentic. It's you. And if people don't love you for that, they're the wrong people, because everybody should love you. In fact, on the other side, everybody loves you because everyone loves each other. But more importantly, why would you create an avatar for your avatar? You are the avatar.
You are the avatar.
This person, and I won't name them, their name, that's your avatar. Adam Vasquez is my avatar for my higher self right now. This is going to maximize myself. Denise is the same.
My avatar. And I made her have this hair her whole life.
You can have any hair you want. I mean, right? But I just mean that it's like, this is the avatar. So this is the game. So when people play other games to escape this game, it's like they're ignoring the game, right? It's like a mini game within a game because they don't want to play it. And I like video games, so don't get me wrong. I love video games. But I just mean, if you put it in context of that, you realize you are the avatar, and this is the simulation itself. And it's the ultimate gamification at a soul level. It just changes you should feel empowered with that knowledge.
Yes, absolutely. It is an empowering knowledge that allows you to reconcile the unreconcilable, frankly. And everybody says, be yourself, be yourself, be yourself. You tell your children that, you tell people who are afraid of being themselves in a work environment or, a school environment. And sometimes people leave whole cities because they feel they can't be themselves.
Mhm.
And whether they are LGBTQ, whether they feel that with their identification, or whether they feel that with their politics, or whether they feel that just with the people in their community that look at them a certain way and they want to be themselves. Please be yourself. That's where all the good shit happens. I said shit. That's where all the good stuff happens, is when you be yourself. That's when flow happens, when you be yourself.
That's when you're on your divine path and things start to come to you. Synchronicities start to happen. Like, wow, I was never that lucky in the past. Well, luck. So here's my point on luck. Okay. Luck is someone for third density trying to explain consciousness. They don't understand it. It's like looking at, anything and trying to explain it, like that rock. Oh, it's a rock. So what's luck? Luck really doesn't exist. It is a human word for something that we did not understand. And let me explain a few things. So what country you live? I used to think, okay, luck exists I was born in the fact that luck only exists with the family I was born into, but you choose your parents.
Right.
That's designed. You designed the place where you were born, whether you were born without parents or born in an orphanage or born in a very wealthy family. You chose that. And this is how brave souls that started off in a very low place, because they accelerated their catalysts, because they wanted more catalysts faster, because we're in an acceleration point. We have to get these catalysts because all of us are trying to graduate as quickly as possible. And so there's no luck there. And then the idea of luck when good things come to you, there's two things. There's the macro and micro flow that we talk about, or strategic or tactical flow, right? Law of attraction, keeping in a good vibration and everything else. The universe just wants to give you love. God just wants to give you love. So it just wants to give you what you think you want to. So when good things attract good things to you, that's because your mindset is in the right place. Your mind is aligned to abundant love, the truth of the universe. And then the universe is going to give you synchronicities that just help you, because those helpful times, people coming into your life at the right time, that's all planned. It is part of the process. So and you're creating it, by the way.
You're creating it. Yeah, the concept of luck, and kind of what you said. There's two opposites here, because one was sort of destiny driven, like, this is all planned, but another one is these are options to you and accelerators. So think about it as, okay, I have a plan, but the plan is basically a role in a game. And how do people get lucky? Oh my God, these people are so lucky. This person is so lucky. Okay, let's explain the concept of luck, which I think everybody can say they have an opinion on, because, there's no such thing as luck. Statistically, there is no luck. You could kind of say that. But time and time again, things happen to certain people that open up doors. Right place, right time. This is not a byproduct of chaos theory. This is a byproduct of energy. And I think you can ladder just about everything up to that, in the sense of, where was your head at that time? And the concept of unlucky is also true.
Yeah.
Where was your, I am just, more for me, more, screw me, more, it's just, I am the unluckiest person to walk the earth. Don't say that.
Well, because you're just attracting that, right? It's law of attraction 101. It's the frequency vibration you're operating in.
Yes. And if you think that this is hocus pocus and this is crazy talk, it's like, what's your upside? What's your upside to believe in something different? Where is that upside? We are offering you a map to happiness and an explanation that your rational mind can like actually take and go, that kind of fits. That kind of makes sense. So there's no upside in believing that there is no luck and there is no unluck and there is no purpose in life and there is no personal path.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we got to remember, even when you don't feel free, you are free. It is a totally open, free game, especially on the other side. You can choose what planets, what experiences, whatever you want, and in the pace that you want to go, because the ascension process is up to when you're ready for it, not when it's ready for you, right? It's the other way around. So there's really, it's just a point. I guess my point to drill in is it's really just we're all free, and we've got to free ourselves from these third density belief systems that are keeping us in that density, in a very dense and fear-based catalyst. I don't know about you, Denise. I don't need those catalysts anymore. I'm past it. I've graduated all this. And
I don't need any of this stuff. So, when you look at, and that comes also with age, but it also makes sense that it comes with age. People become this reduction sauce and they don't play the same games anymore when they get older. So that is the ancient wisdom that we talked about before. And, the great resignation meant that a lot of people were, think of what that was. Oh my God, the whole earth, the whole world, the whole civilized and uncivilized world stopped and had a reset.
Yeah.
And a lot of people reset to the point of, I don't need to do this anymore because it doesn't resonate. And even the whole, what is it called? Non-working, I forgot.
Quiet quitting.
Quiet quitting. Yes. Even quiet quitting is like, okay, you're treading water to see what's next. You're treading water to see how you are moved forward, because having a job and having a purpose and having that kind of infrastructure to your life is really important, because it exists out in the universe too.
Well, yeah, exactly. And if you think about COVID or Ukraine or whatever else we're getting pulled into, these are like software or system-wide sort of upgrades or catalysts, meaning you're going to have your individual catalysts, and then you're going to have these macro catalysts that are totally already designed in the game that you're just going to have to experience, because it is the catalyst that the game designers have decided at a holistic level. This is what we need to do to raise everybody's consciousness up faster. So just think about the other side of the veil. If you're all love and any decision you make is based on love, and you're like, well, it doesn't matter because it's all temporary. It's just a video game anyway. So like, we all know this. So you take a different decision when you look at something like COVID and you're like, oh, millions of people are going to die. But when you look at it, you're like, well, they're not really dead. It's just that their avatars are die, and more people are going to raise their consciousness, and we're going to succeed at a planetary shift faster. What are you going to do? You're going to hit the COVID button. Maybe there's better ways, but the better ways are us waking up, so we don't need macro catalysts like that. But our higher selves are saying that, yes, you do, because you're not getting there fast enough, right? Mm-hmm. World War II was a big macro catalyst.
Yes. Do you want to show your, do you have time? Do we have time to show
which one you want?
China, Russia chart.
Oh, yes. So let's talk about, we talked about catalysts and people leaving, and I want to share this really quickly with you all. And
yeah, quickly, but it's kind of cool. And yes, maybe you can't do this.
I'm gonna try to explain this a little. Yeah, let me explain this. So what we're seeing is demographics, and it's hard to see because I got 3 up here. but you have United States, Russia in the middle, and China on the right. And this is demographic sort of populations by ages. So the taller up on the chart is the older the person is, and the lower the chart is the younger person is. The blue on the left is male, the red on the right is female in populations. And what we see here, and we're talking about, people keep talking about this huge population collapse that is coming. Like, doesn't matter, COVID, wars, or whatever, that this is on top of, this is happening regardless. And if you look at the United States, which arguably, and I'll go, let me just go back to go to this slide real quickly here. Let's see if I can.
that other side. Yeah.
I can go back here. So if you look at the map of consciousness, the US is, we're not up in reason and love yet. As a whole sort of body, we're probably in neutrality and willingness with going and merging into acceptance. But if you look at China and Russia, and we're not saying everybody's like this, but as a collective, as a whole, they're down in the guilt, apathy, fear, shame sort of level, meaning communists, like if you can't have too much or you're doing something evil, right? That's what's driving that. And that's a fear that somebody's going to make more than another person. And
or someone's going to take away something. Common one.
Sorry. And Denise, and both of these governments are authoritarian, control based, which is based off of fear. So either way, they're fear and below. They're not, maybe some are in desire and anger for sure, but they're low level, sort of a map of consciousness as a whole. Now, remember that we're going to fourth density now, right? That means souls who are not at fourth density already cannot reincarnate on this planet. Okay.
Important point. Remember that.
And the other part is souls that are coming in, they will not choose to incarnate in a authoritarian, catalyst rich environment, which China and Russia are. Think about the number of catalysts for the soul, growth soul to finding love, right? Tons in those two environments, right? With the control, authoritarian, painful, lots of pain, right? They will not need to incarnate in these countries if they are able to incarnate, because they don't need those catalysts, right? They don't need those catalysts. So let's look at what it means from a population collapse. So this is a theory, okay? This is
Adam's theory.
So my theory is, Darwin said, with evolution brought evolution. But what Darwin didn't understand, he was just looking at the physical evolution. The evolution happens in the mind and consciousness, and then the physical body changes based on that consciousness, internal consciousness evolution. So when you see something external, that's just the physical effect from the internal change internally. Okay. So think about that, right? Starts with the mind and then consciousness. So when a species evolves, it's evolving from the consciousness level first, and then the physical form is being created. All right. So when we think about that, then think about populations, it makes sense that the United States being the highest level of frequency, and we've got our issues. Okay. We're still not in fourth density. We're still in the end of third density. And you can see the politics, and a lot of people are totally unaware of this. Okay. But those who are listening right now, you are aware of this, and you are some of the early adopters, innovators in this space. And many of you are probably starseeds. Okay. I'll just say it. So when you think about this, doesn't it make sense that Russia and China, who are still grasping on the fear and want to start wars over trying to control people and their sense of their history and clinging onto the past, and the fact that Taiwan needs to be part of one China and Ukraine needs to be, and the reason why Russia is doing this, or Putin's doing this, because he's afraid people will invade him, and NATO and all this false beliefs based on fear and his beliefs dying, and they don't respect our culture and everything else. Well, if your culture is based on fear and scarcity, you're not going to exist in this fourth density. Okay. Your culture will die, because that social construct, that social belief system is dying. And we can see it in the numbers. So we see these huge drops in Russia. Russia is literally, population is going to drop in half in the next 10 years. Yeah, and China is collapsing. Both Russia and China are countries that are dead. They are dying, and they are already dead. And so that's what makes them scary, because this is and they're being controlled by people or service to self. So these are service to self souls that want to keep the planet at a service to self level, and they've lost. They've already lost. Service to self is lost on this planet because service to others with light workers like us and everything has come down here. Now, but NATO is wrong also, because NATO, if we force people to do things, that is based on fear. And anytime the US government or any of our allies try to force another country to ascend in their own consciousness or change their culture to based on our viewpoints, that is much of a fear-based approach as what the Russians and the Chinese are doing. So we're wrong too in this process, by the way.
But if you are listening and on audio, what these charts mean on the bottom, there are more people coming up in the United States than there are in Russia and China. And because there are more people and because people die, that's what Adam means by they're out of business. And out of business means they don't have people to fight a war.
Right.
Like they are not fast forward 10 years, they're not going to have enough soldiers to put on the ground to fight any war.
So this is their last.
This is
their last chance and their last push for service to self and fear-based consciousness, because they've already lost, and they will. But it might be ugly. God forbid that we have something at a global nuclear level, but regardless, it doesn't matter. They're done. They're done. In fact, we don't really, and Iran's in the same boat. We don't need to do anything but let them just finish themselves because they've already lost.
Yeah, here's my props to the women of Iran. Love you guys. Please send positive vibes to these women, because the divine feminine will change a lot of things around here, because it's kind of messed up.
So let's do a parting word, and then a conclude with a meditation, right?
I have a meditation.
Yeah. So it's just one last thought, but I'd like us to conclude on a meditation, because that's just a nice way to end. We're all in this together. We are all incredible beings. The fact that we chose to be here, and we've evolved through multiple densities to get here in multiple lives. And we're all connected, and we all want to see love. And that's where we need to change the realities and stop holding on to the past beliefs of shareholder capitalism, moving to a karmic model, and just looking at ourselves and how we interact with others, and see the infinite being, the person, the soul playing this avatar on the couch, to know that this is all just temporary catalyst noise to achieve what we're trying to do at a soul level. And once we get that together, we can advance and we can move into fourth density quicker, and it will just be a beautiful thing.
A beautiful thing. Okay, I'm taking the meditation today. So please do what I say, because I am the power here and the wisdom of the universe talking to you with your eyes closed. So close your eyes. And yes, the power of the universe is feminine. Close your eyes. Take a deep, deep breath. Hold it in. Let it out. Take another deep, deep breath. Hold it in. Let it out. Make sure your shoulders are not tensed up. Bring them down. Make sure your eyes aren't squinting. Let them loose, but don't look. Now I want you to imagine a point in the air above you. It could be 1,000 feet above you or 10,000 feet above you, but there is a point, a particle that is there. That point or particle is you. You are there. That is you. Now look down to see what you see. That is you. Look up to see what you see. That is you. You are everything. We are one thing. We are connected at an energy level that isn't about physical 3 dimension. It's another dimension. As above, so below. As within, so without. As the universe, so the soul. You can open your eyes now.
Thank you, Denise. That was lovely.
Oh, thank you.
Well, on that excellent thing, Denise, do you want to close us out?
Okay. Be joyous, be happy, be grateful, and find how you can get there. Think about how you can get there from here. So whatever you're feeling, be happy, be joyous, be grateful, be full of love. And you'll be all right.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you to everybody who joined us today or watching us after the replay. And please don't forget to like and subscribe and share this with others, because we're trying to change the world together, and we're there and we need to keep pushing. So thank you. Thank you, everyone. You lovely soul. Denise, thank you very much.
Thank you, Adam. You were banging today.
You too. Thanks, Denise. Take care, everyone. See you next week.